Man, I'm so glad that y'all are tuning in today. Welcome to 516 Project, baby. It's your boy Chris Davenport, Pastor Chris Davenport. Get to be the pastor here. I'm just so thankful that we just are going through this awesome sermon series, this awesome series called Uncompromising. And today we finish that series up in Daniel 6. Thank you, Jonathan Brooker, for being here last week, and Pastor Tom been here the week before that. Or 2 weeks before that. It's just been an honor to be able to go through this awesome series of Uncompromising. And from this point, we've learned a lot. We saw in chapter 1, Daniel is and his friends and all of Israel is taken hostage by Babylon. So Babylon is ruling them, and basically King Nebuchadnezzar has taken hostage of the buff dudes, the great looking dudes, the young ones, and has really tried to brainwash them. And so he's given them new names, a new language, a new culture, and new food. But Daniel compromised a little bit with the language and the culture, but he does not compromise on the food. And so you see how God begins to work that out for him, and God blesses him because of his faith. And so he's now able to interpret dreams and listen to dreams. And so you get to chapter 2 where King Nebuchadnezzar has this crazy dream, and Daniel is the one that interprets it. And then you get into chapter 3 where his friends are thrown in this fiery furnace, and God rescues them. They're not burned at all. Like, there's nothing wrong with them, and they're in great shape. And you just see how God just dives in and rescues. And we just keep coming back to this word uncompromising, because it's like, man, if God can do all these amazing things through all these trials and circumstances, like, why would I compromise him? You know, like, why would I put something else in front of him? Or why would I not follow him and love his ways? And so you get to chapters 4 and 5 where it's just based on pride. There's just a pride issue that's happening in Babylon, where you see King Nebuchadnezzar is like, I did this, I tied this shoe, I did all of that. And King Nebuchadnezzar becomes insane. And it takes him looking up into the heavens and realizing that God is a God that is good, and God is the God that gave him the gifts to be able to do all the things that he needed to do. And so he lives the rest of his life successful, and we may see him in heaven someday. But then you see his grandson, who struggled also with pride, which was King Belshazzar. He did not do well with pride, and because of it, his life came to an end. When I think about pride, there's obviously a difference between pride and humility. Like, pride says, I can do it on my own. I don't need the Lord. Pride is saying, I did it on my own and the Lord wasn't there. But when you see humility, which is what we're going to talk about in chapter 6, it's saying, like, I need the Lord. Like, I can do nothing without him. I can't breathe without him. I can't walk without him allowing me to walk. I can't do it on my own. I need the Lord. I didn't do it on my own. The Lord was there, and we need the Lord. And that's a strong sign of humility, to have the realization of saying, like, all things are possible with God. Like, I can't do anything on my own, but everything is possible with him. The gifts of dreams, that's possible because of the Lord. Surviving the furnace, that's possible because of the Lord. Needing sanity, right, for your life, that's possible because of the Lord. All things are possible if you have the Lord, and that's including what we're going to see in chapter 6, surviving the lion's den. Surviving the lion's den. Your big idea is this: all things are possible with God. You can type it in the chat, put it in the comments. All things are possible with the Lord. That's a strong sign of humility. Like, we need that in our everyday life. So let's break it down. Daniel chapter 6, it says this: it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom of 120 satraps. Now remember, King Darius is now the new king. He's taken over. He's the man. And now basically what he's done is put like local rulers or provincial governors in charge of all of this area. And it says to be throughout the whole kingdom. Verse 2 says, and over them 3 high officials whom Daniel was one, to whom the satrap should give account, so that the king might suffer no loss. It's so beautiful also to see that through all of this transition, you have Daniel being in Israel, and now he's like moving into Babylon, and he's loved in Babylon, treated well in Babylon. He's the man in Babylon, and then now to this new king named King Darius, cares for Daniel. Like, he loves Daniel too, which we'll see that a little bit later. But Daniel just has this aroma of that people just want to be around him, and he is a great leader to it. He is just at the top of the chain in every area, no matter who's king or isn't king. And it says in verse 3, then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps. So he's up there, like he's high. And it says it's because of his excellent spirit that was in him, meaning like not the Holy Spirit per se, but more so of like he just had this excellent spirit about him. He's this joy that he has about him. And it really, I think, it's come from knowing the Lord, having a relationship with the Lord, and there's nothing that can really tear him down. And it says, and the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. So again, God has truly blessed Daniel. Even with another king, Daniel is still the big dog because God is with him, meaning like all things are possible with God. Even in the midst of the storm, the separation from his family, from this Jewish life, all that he has known, he hasn't stopped serving the Lord. He has been faithful to the Lord. The Lord has been faithful to him. And you got to realize this too, like we've seen Daniel grow in age. He's 80 years old when this is happening in Daniel chapter 6. He isn't this young, strong man any longer. He is an 80-year-old man, faithful to the Lord, and is still holding high position in a place that isn't even his people's place. And so, number one, I want you to write this down. Your age doesn't get in God's way. Your age doesn't get in God's way because all things are possible with God, no matter the age. To God, age is just a number. He can use you if you're still breathing his breath. You just have to want to be used. No matter how old you are, God ain't done with you yet. You look at King Josiah, right? He was leading this nation at the age of 12. David, a young, tiny boy, defeated this grown man like Goliath, with a slingshot and a rock. That means all things are possible with God. David could not do that without God. King Josiah couldn't lead this nation without God. And Abraham, you know what I'm saying? Abraham gets Sarah pregnant. He's 100 years old. She's in her 90s. Right? Like some of y'all think like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Because all things are possible with God. There's no way. Like they weren't dying at age of 800 anymore. Right? They were dying in the hundreds. And so like all things are possible with God. When God is with you, all things are possible. When God is with you, who can be against you? And here Daniel is 80 years old and is an excellent leader, high in authority, high in position, and people hate that. Look at verse 4. Then the high officials and the satraps sought to find ground for a complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. But they could find no ground or complaint or any fault because he was faithful and no error or fault was found in him. Then these men said, we shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. So they can't find anything wrong with Daniel. Like, man, Daniel is just killing it. He's doing such a great job. We can't find nothing wrong. But I do notice Daniel loves his God. You see how people do that? Like people try to attack your beliefs when they can't attack you. Like we see that in today's society, in today's world. Like if they can't attack you, they try to attack what you believe in. And this is what these people are doing. They're like, man, we got to find a way to bring Daniel down so that we can rise to the top. We can't find nothing wrong. He's doing everything well, but let's try to attack what he believes in. So they do that. Verse 6 says this. Then these high officials and these satraps came by agreement to the king and said to him, "O King Darius," right? Like any king would want to hear that, you know? "O King Darius, live forever," he says. All the high officials of the kingdom, the prefects and the satraps, the counselors and the governors are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance, enforce an injunction that whoever makes petition to any god or man for 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. So basically they said like, man, O King Darius, live forever. You are amazing. In fact, you're so amazing. I think everyone in the kingdom should praise you for 30 days. And if there's someone that doesn't praise you, let's throw them into the lion's den. Knowing Daniel only worships God and God alone. Not man, not angels, not anything else, but only God. It says this. "Now, King, establish this injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked." Therefore, King Darius signed this document and injunction. And when Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had windows in his upper chamber open towards Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God. And as he had done previously, then these men came by agreement and found Daniel make petition and plea before his God. What you have here is Darius signs this decree saying that no one can worship another God for 30 days. And the crazy part to me is this. He himself can't even change that decree. Like once he's written it, he can't change it. Like how crazy is that, right? Like to me, that seems insane. And Daniel hears about this and immediately what do you see him do? He goes to pray. Daniel realizes he's knowing that all things are possible with God. So once this decree goes out, like Daniel doesn't stop praying. Daniel doesn't abandon God who's always been there for him. But instead, Daniel turns to God for help. So my question for you today, my application for you today is this. What is the lion's den in your life? What is this decree in your life? What is it that's causing chaos in your life? That's going to be chaos. What seems to be holding you down? It seems that they want to hold Daniel down and not let him thrive. What is it that's holding you down in your life? What's devouring you? What seems to take control of every thought in your life? What is your lion's den? What's threatening destruction? Is it your own insecurities? Is it people talking bad about you? Is it hurt from a relationship? Is it singleness? Is it cancer? Is it COVID? Is it the vaccine? Is it your marriage? Is that falling apart? Is your job toxic? Is it a loss of a parent or a loss of a friend? What is your lion's den? And my question for you this morning is how do you handle it? Are we supposed to panic? No. Are we supposed to worry? No. Are we supposed to give up? No. But we see 3 times a day he got on his knee and prayed. I love how he prays. It says he prayed by giving God thanks. Like he didn't immediately bring his worry or immediately bring the problem. He went straight to the Lord and said, Lord, thank you for life. Like, thank you for breath. Thank you for this beautiful place. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He went to God for thanks. And it says, just as he had done before. Then he adds to his request and says, God, help me. Stop running to your addictions. Stop running to your anxiety. Stop running to your attitude. But run to Abba Father with your thanksgiving and with your troubles. Run to God asking him for help. Like say, somebody help me. Like God help me. Say, God help me. Because all things are possible with God no matter what you are going through in life. And so verse 12, it says this. Then they came near and said before the king concerning the injunction, O king, did you not sign an injunction? So they're basically running to the king. They're about to tattletale, right? They're like, hey, king, like didn't you sign an injunction? Didn't you sign like this decree that said no one is supposed to worship another God except for you? Like we should all be worshiping you. And so you get down to, so it says, did you not sign an injunction? And verse 13 said, then they answered and said before the king, Daniel, who was one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or the injunction you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was in so much distressed, like he was sad, he was upset, he was angry. And he set his mind to deliver Daniel. Like he really cared for Daniel. He didn't want to throw Daniel in the lion's den. And so he labored, meaning he worked till the sun went down to rescue him. And then these men came by agreement to the king and said, King, know, O king, that it is a law for the Medes and Persians that no injunction or ordinance that the king establishes can be changed. And so they remind him what the document is that he signed, and they basically tell him that he can't change. And again, I just point back to that, like, that's crazy to me. The one that creates a decree, the one that caused the decree, can't change the decree. He can't fix the decree. The decree is already written. There's nothing that he can do. But let me ask you a question. Guess who can overcome that decree? Guess who can overcome that injunction? God can. Because all things are possible with God and with God alone. So number 2, I want you to write this down. Be dependent on God. In life, there are things we try to do without God. We try to move without God. We don't consult God with our problems. And that's the biggest mistake that we could ever do. We should never try to handle things on our own power. We should never try to defeat something in our own might. This is what we call is pride. Like we need God. We're trying to fix the problem without God to make our problems even more prolific. And the biggest area that I see this in is when people try to count on their own works to be righteous in front of God. They try to count their own things that they've done right to be righteous in front of God. Can I tell you that this can't save you? This won't escape you from God's wrath. This won't escape you from the lion's den. You cannot save yourself. The only person that can save you is Jesus. The only name that every knee will bow to is Jesus. No matter how many things you've done right, no matter how many old ladies you've walked across the street, no matter how many homeless people you've fed, no matter how many marriages have been saved under you, no matter how many people you've saved, no matter how many divorces that you have not had, or divorces that you've had, no matter how many cigarettes that you smoked and not smoke, or being drunk and not being drunk, no matter how many times you've been to church every Sunday, if you haven't put your trust in Jesus, you won't be saved from the wrath of God. If you're not dependent on God, you will not be saved. Your works don't bring righteousness. Jesus' blood, his death, and his resurrection pays it all. Be dependent on God, not man. Not by your strength, not by your power, but only through the power of God you can be saved. And Daniel realizes that. Daniel understands that he can be saved from this lion's den only through the power of God. Verse 17. And a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den. And the king sealed it with a signet and with the signet of his lords, that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. So he throws him into the lion's den and he puts a rock over it so that Daniel can't come out. Then he puts a signet ring on it so that nothing can be changed. Then the king went to the palace and spent the night fasting. No diversions were brought to him, and sleep fled from him. 19. Then at break of day, the king arose and went in haste to the den of the lions. And as he came near to the den where Daniel was, he cried out in a tone of anguish. The king declared to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? This is awesome. Verse 21. Then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lion's mouth, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I have done no harm. Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. All things are possible with God. You have to know that today, that all things are possible. Nothing else can save you. You may be going through a hard time in life right now today. Whatever you're going through today, I want you to know, go to God in prayer. because all things are possible with him. And also know to trust in him so much that whatever God decides, you have peace with it. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for today. God, thank you for your word and your guidance. Lord, I'm so thankful that we just get an opportunity to learn more about Daniel and the lion's den, about how you were able to save and rescue someone, that you're the only one that can save and rescue. Lord, I pray that this week goes well, and we love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hey, hope y'all have a good week. Always remember,